friends. Hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello. So today we're going to be doing just a little good old-fashioned get ready with me, but I thought to do a fun little twist on it, we would do kind of I love doing these videos. I think Luke Alexander inspired me to start doing them because he does them very well, so I'll link his down below. But it's basically reacting to your unpopular opinions. I just feel like this video idea is kind of fun. I thought it would be fun to do it in a get ready with me style because I haven't really done a get ready with me in a while. I'm gonna do is a while back I asked you guys on my Instagram stories to tell me some of your unpopular opinions, and I got a ton. So today we are just gonna go through those and I will get ready while I do that. And we're just gonna talk. So if you're down for that, stick around. If I'm looking over here, it's because my mirror is here and I don't think I can put the mirror anywhere else because I have new lighting. So we're gonna see how this goes. But the first one that I see here is it's okay to separate politics and makeup. Okay, that's a really good point. We're starting off with like a bang here. First of all, my answer to that is I agree. I do think it's okay to separate politics and makeup. Like, I think it's okay to make makeup content and not necessarily have politics thrown in. I think where it does get a little bit dicey, for me at least, is when you have influence. I think it really depends on what you're talking about, because like one of my friends, the favorite phrase is like, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. So do I agree that you should be able to like buy, purchase, review makeup without politics involved? Sure. However, I do think that if we're talking about, if you're like a makeup channel, you shouldn't have opinions on political issues. I guess I do not disagree. I'm never going to force someone to talk about something they're not comfortable talking about, but I do slightly disagree that I think if you do have a platform and you do believe in something, you should talk about it. I'm gonna use this. I've been loving this. It's the tinted face oil from Kosas. It's literally so good. I also think a person can make whatever decision is best for themselves based on what they know and things like that, because for me, I'm obviously very social justice-y, like outside of my makeup channel and outside of YouTube and what I do. And I'm also a very commentary-based channel. So I think when I create content that's surrounding stuff that's political, I kind of do feel like it makes sense that I do that, because it's not super far off base from what I already do, but I can understand why certain content creators like don't want to go political and don't want to be like that. So I don't know. I'm kind of the opinion that if you have a platform, you should use it, but also at the same time, I'm never gonna like shame people for not talking about politics. Does that make sense? I get why people do it and I get why people don't. I also think the other thing about talking about politics on YouTube is it definitely opens you up to a lot of crap. Diversity within beauty campaigns should mean more than just racial diversity. Of course. I think it would be nice if we could at least get something going. But I've always been a huge kind of person who said like, I think that we should have much more plus size representation. Beauty campaigns are notoriously pretty ableist, where they don't include people who have disability. Very rarely do we see beauty campaigns featuring women with acne or men with acne or even just men in general. Yeah, I think it's definitely more than just racial diversity. I don't think I've ever seen a plus size person in a beauty campaign, besides maybe Ashley Graham, but she doesn't have a double chin. If a plus size model doesn't have a double chin, low key, I don't feel seen. I know that sounds bad, but I feel like the double chin is really a thing. I've talked about this before with my friends where I'm like, I never ever see models, even the plus size models, have double chins, and it makes me feel so inferior to everyone else. There's too many makeup brands. I don't know if I agree with the too many makeup brands. There definitely is a huge oversaturation in the market, but the thing about it that I've been realizing recently is like, if a brand is good, they will continue to be good and they will go on to be like a bigger brand. And if a brand is not good and they're consistently putting out like gimmicky products just because it's like a celebrity behind them or whatever, then it will not go on to be a good brand and like stick around. So even though we're seeing this big kind of oversaturation right now, I think in the next like 5 to 10 years, we are absolutely going to start seeing that like level out a little bit, because even though it's like the trendy thing to do right now, it's the same thing with perfumes. Like, people who had really pop in perfumes are still making them, and the people that didn't aren't making them anymore. And also I do think that by writing off every new brand as like a, oh, it's just a whatever brand, I do in a way feel like we aren't being open to what could potentially be a very successful and good brand. Like, I kind of wrote off Rare Beauty by Selena Gomez when it first was announced, because I was like, oh man, another celebrity makeup brand that I have zero interest in. Like, that's how I felt. But now that I've seen what products they have coming out and I've seen kind of the vibe that they're going for, I'm actually excited to try the products. I want to try it. I wish I hadn't have written it off so quickly. So I'm kind of learning from that and just trying to be like that with all these new launches now. Let people make the makeup. If it sucks, then we won't buy it again. And then they'll slowly close down because you can't run a business without selling things. Super unpopular opinion. I hate pumpkin spice. Me too. I also hate it. American people do not know anything about history or political situations anywhere other than the US. Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think that's true for like all Americans. There's obviously a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things. I don't want to generalize Americans because I don't really like making generalizations about anyone, but I will say that I think based on our education system and the education system that I grew up in, I definitely did not. I learned about world history, but not in the same way that I learned about American history. Like, I definitely know much more about how America works and how our culture works than I do about other cultures. And that could just be because I grew up in a really small town. It could also be that I was, you know, 14 when I learned about world history, so I didn't really understand the importance of it. But I definitely think there is a pretty large focus on America. And I actually didn't ever really realize that until I traveled abroad and did like work abroad, because I met so many people from so many different countries, even from like Australia. And I knew nothing about Australia. Like, I literally knew nothing about their history. I knew nothing about how their, you know, politics were. Like, I didn't know anything. And that's when I kind of realized, like, oh, when I was like 20, I was like, oh yeah, I don't know anything about anyone else, I guess. Because you do kind of have living here this sort of, and again, I don't want to speak for everyone, but this was just my experience. I did have sort of like an America-centric mindset. And that's something I've really tried to change just as I've gotten older and as I've learned more. I've definitely tried to learn more about other countries and learn more about other things that aren't just America. Does that make sense? This commenter is a person of my own heart. Not every beauty YouTuber has the skill to teach and make tutorials, and they're valid. I see people wishing beauty YouTubers was about tutorials again, but TBH, I prefer chatty videos more. Yeah, here's the thing about that. So first of all, I obviously have a series called Talktorial Tuesday where I don't do tutorials on it though. That's why I call it Talktorial. So I really do just like do a get ready with me basically. I just chat and then I'll be like, no, I'm putting this purple on. Like that's my gig. And I will say, for as much as a lot of people say that they want tutorials and they say that they want makeup education videos, the analytics just don't support that. For any creator across the board, the analytics don't support that. I do think there's kind of this idea that like, oh, you can only be successful in the beauty industry right now if you're like more negative. And I don't know if I think that's true, because I think there's something, I think more critical videos usually do get more views, but I've also seen positive videos get really good views and do really well. But I think what we're seeing a lot is like tutorials are kind of not as big right now. Not that people aren't successful with them, not that you can't make them, but I think you have to be a specific kind of person to make them. And I think for most creators, those views are just not as good as they used to be just making a tutorial. I think people, because makeup now, a lot more people kind of know how to do it, like the gist. They're not really watching tutorials as much anymore. They'd rather watch someone do something like this, like do a get ready with me and talk and have it be a little bit more entertaining. And also I do think you can be a makeup enthusiast and a makeup lover without necessarily being the best at makeup. I feel like to think that you can only be a beauty YouTuber if you have the skill level of like, who's someone so talented. There's so many talented people. But I think the idea that you have to be at that level to be successful as a makeup lover is kind of silly, because not everybody can do their makeup like that. I like to think, I've said this before, but I like to think that on my channel, it's like I give you a realistic vision of what makeup can look like. Like, I cannot do crazy cut creases or crazy eye makeup, but I can definitely do something basic and simple that's more realistic, I guess. I like to think I represent the group of people who love makeup but aren't necessarily the best at it. It's kind of my gig here. Being fat positive is toxic. Everybody should love themselves, but encouraging obesity kills. I feel like that's a really controversial one, especially being that I am plus size. Like, when you are plus size and you speak about plus size things, your opinion's kind of instantly invalidated. But I will just kind of briefly touch on how I feel about this. I don't think that being positive about your body is a bad thing ever. And I do think that we have created a culture where we ruthlessly attack people who are fat because we think it's gonna make them skinny. And the reality is it's not going to make them skinny. You're gonna lose weight and you're gonna like do that process. You should be doing it because you want to, not because 500 people on the internet told you you were fat. That's the reason. I think people get really confused about like fat positivity, or body positivity is what I would call it, because it's not fat positivity. It's regardless of what you look like, everybody should be allowed to feel beautiful. You shouldn't have to always feel like you're the before to a before and after picture. You should be allowed to wear the clothing that you want to wear without being just ruthlessly mocked on the internet for wearing that clothing. And honestly, the whole like obesity kills thing, okay, sure. But number one, do you think the person that is overweight doesn't know that? Number two, there's so many pre-existing conditions that can lead to people being more overweight. So that's the another thing nobody fucking ever considers. And number three, do you know how many things kill? Are you telling your friend who just got blackout drunk and for funsies at a bar on like a Thursday, are you telling her that she's killing her body with poison? Are you all up on her ass about that? Or are you laughing because you had a fun time and it was a funny story? And also the idea that if you are overweight, it means you're not eating healthy or you're not exercising. I know my friends, I have friends who eat like the absolute worst and they never exercise. They're so thin. And it's like, you're gonna tell me that they're living a better lifestyle for themselves just because technically on paper they're skinnier. It just seems hypocritical, I guess. You're judging an entire person's like life. You're judging their entire health. You're judging everything about them based on an appearance when you don't know everything about them. You don't know their medical history. You don't, like, it just seems weird to me. I don't know. It's weird that we've normalized shitting on people, and I feel like that you just don't like how people look and you just want to be mean, and you're just using, oh, it could kill you as an excuse to be mean. I feel like rarely do people actually want to like help when they're being assholes to people who are fat online. They're not saying, oh, you're like out of concern. The 99% of the time, the times I've been called fat have been people being mean to me. And then when I called them on it, they used the I'm just worried about your health defense. So it's like, you're not though. You're not worried about me. You just wanted an excuse to be an asshole, and that's fine, but own it. Don't hide behind health. Like, come on, just be real about it. It has nothing to do, 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with health, honestly. You also never know what a person is doing in their personal life to lose weight, or like what's going on with them. Like, that's, I guess, the gist of it. People want people to hate themselves so badly that they don't even consider all these totally rational and normal things that they normally would with a person. They just want people to hate themselves, I think. Which again, like, fine, but just own it. Vanilla ice cream is trash. It's like the only ice cream I eat. Post-secondary isn't the right choice for everyone. So I don't know how I feel about that one. I definitely obviously am a pretty large advocate for college on my channel. People have now seen it as lame to promote college when I just don't agree with that. I don't really think it's lame to like college. And I worry that because people have painted it as lame, like people like Jake Paul with his song where he wrote a diss track about teachers, I do worry what that, and all of these influencers who, you know, didn't go to college and are millionaires, I do worry what that culture will do. Obviously, I think college isn't right for everybody in the sense that, like, if you want to go to trade school, or if the job that you want doesn't require college, don't waste your time or money going to college. What I have an issue with is people who want to, especially younger kids right now, kids that I worked with who were in middle school, I would be like, what's your goals for college? What's your plan? And it wasn't like, no, I want to go into the military, or it wasn't anything like that. It was like, no, I'm gonna go be an influencer. I'm gonna be like race scum. And like that, I think, is kind of dangerous, because even if it does work out for some kids, which it probably would, even if it does like work out for you, for the majority of kids it's not. And also, even if being an influencer does work out for you short term, realistically, a lot of these influencers are not going to have this level of fame in 10 years. I don't really like the idea of promoting being an influencer as a career, because I don't think it's a steady or stable one. Like, yes, you can make good financial decisions and you can save up money and like technically you probably could be okay, but I also just think it's in a job like this where it's really up and down and everything could go wrong tomorrow. Trends could change in a day. You know, YouTube could demonetize your entire channel. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong with doing a job like this that I do think it's always good to have a backup plan. Like, when I see people quitting college when they're like almost done. Like, I followed this one girl, she had like 1 year left of college and she just quit, go to LA and do YouTube. And I just wanted to be like, why? Why would you not just have a backup plan, you know? Especially because she was getting her degree in something you can't really get a job in unless you have the degree. So it was obviously what she was interested in. And to me, it's just thinking about the future. And maybe I'm just a little bit too doomsday in my thinking. But even for me right now, I mean, I finished my bachelor's and it's obviously tempting to not go to grad school and just like do YouTube. Like that's obviously tempting because it's good money, it's a decent job, like for right now, like whatever. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but what about in 2 years when this is all gone and then I have to start from scratch again? I don't know. I think it's just good to have a degree. However, I do want to make it clear too that to get a college degree, you have to be incredibly privileged. And I think that's another area where in like my dream world, if you wanted to go, you could just go. Because that's another huge issue is a lot of kids want to go and they just can't. Nobody should have to do that. Like you should be able to reasonably afford going to college or just make it free in general for everybody to get a college degree when it is so required in our society to get a decent job. College is like a scam, but it's a necessary scam. Does that make sense? Smaller influencers are to indie brands what bigger influencers are to mainstream brands. That I agree with. I've been using Christy's palette quite a bit. I love Christy. I've been using her Pure palette. So I'm gonna use that today just to do something kind of basic. Yeah, that I definitely agree with. I think that smaller influencers and smaller makeup brands linking up is actually super, super smart and makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I'm kind of biased because I have my collaboration with Midas, but I do think it's smart for smaller brands to get in with smaller influencers. Realistically, smaller influencers aren't going to charge the rates that bigger influencers might. They're also more likely to show the product. And I think to discount smaller influencers' impact and their audiences is a little bit silly to do. It'd be silly to ignore smaller influencers. A lot of small influencers, even with like 5K, have huge amounts of influence. They get fantastic engagement. And I think people really listen to small influencers. I almost think it'd be smarter if big brands started using the influence that smaller YouTubers have and that trust that they have. But then in a way, it kind of ruins it. Once the bigger brands catch on, that's kind of what happened with Anastasia. Once the bigger brands catch on, it kind of ruins everything. But I love when I see smaller influencers and smaller brands working together and like hooking up to do cool things. I always think that's awesome. I have never agreed with this opinion more. All karaoke songs should be the first verse and then the chorus twice, and that's it. I have never felt more validated. Okay, I have such a strong opposition to second verses being sung anywhere other than that artist's concert. I swear, karaoke, like I hate singing the second verse. People are over it. Everybody wants to move on. It's the same thing when I was picking my first dance song for my wedding. I was miserable trying to pick a song because I was like, nobody wants to watch us dance for a second verse. Nobody wants to sit through a 4-minute song of us awkwardly swaying back and forth like we're freaking middle schoolers. So we picked like a 2-minute song, and then we met with our DJ, and our DJ was like, you could have just stopped the song after the first verse. And I was like, technically I could have. However, and I didn't really think of that as an option, but I completely and totally agree with this. Like, don't ever sing. If you read the room, there is never a time when you're gonna read the room and the room is gonna be like, yeah, we want the second verse, unless you are the performer who wrote the song. Most performers at concerts don't even play their full songs anymore. Wow, I can't believe somebody thinks the way that I think. I'm so validated. Skincare is good, but how skincare is talked about, marketed, is toxic, ageist, and sexist. Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with this. I think skincare is really important. Stick to like a bronzy glitter. I took a class that was a women's issues class, and we talked a lot about ageism and even sexism and how skincare and makeup are marketed towards women. And it's really, really interesting because especially skincare, I would say makeup does this too, but I think it's really relevant in skincare because the entire premise around marketing for skincare is fear-mongering that you're going to look old. And I think that's really damaging and kind of scary because everybody is going to age regardless. We're all going to get older. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being like, oh, you should take off your makeup, you know, before you go to bed because it doesn't clog your pores. Like, sure, whatever. Like, making your skin healthy is always a good thing. But I think that the way that they market things, and that's why I think skincare is good, because it makes your skin healthy. But I think marketing it as, oh, you don't want to get wrinkles. before the time that you're like 35, it's like, of course you're gonna get wrinkles at some point. Of course you're going to age. That's what growing is. That's what getting older is aging. And the fact that we've sort of, as a society and especially skincare companies, the fact that they've really villainized getting older and painted it as this horribly terrifying thing that we should pay thousands of dollars to prevent is kind of inherently messed up. So I agree with that unpopular opinion. I think it's great to have healthy skin. I completely agree that the marketing on it is completely off. We should be marketing it as, let's have healthier skin, not OMG, don't get old. Being old is bad. And the sexism part is pretty obvious. It's just how, you know, makeup and skincare is like literally never marketed towards men, really. Men have to fight to be included. So it's very obvious that society isn't telling men they need to do certain things to not age or not look beautiful, but women are always told that. The beauty YouTube space is turning into a reality show. I don't know if I would say that that's even unpopular. I would say that's a pretty popular opinion, and I would agree. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it depends on who you follow. There are absolutely so many amazing content creators where the focus is purely just content creation, but absolutely it's turning into somewhat of a reality show. I don't even know if it's just, you know, beauty YouTube. I think it's YouTube in general. I think beauty YouTube definitely has some characters, but if you think about it, YouTube channels in a way are kind of their own mini reality TV shows. We're doing reality, like by filming this, like technically this is a reality show, I guess, because I'm being myself and I'm unscripted and I'm just talking to a camera. So I think it makes sense that because we're all real people and we all have, you know, we're portraying kind of our real personalities on the internet, I think it kind of makes sense that it's gotten so drama filled. I don't think criticizing Trump's weight speech posture is funny. Critique his shitty politics. Yeah, I've always agreed with that stance. I feel like when you, and I've said this, I don't even say this just about like Trump or politics or whatever, but I feel like when you insult someone's appearance or you insult something that's like super petty or whatever, it does in a way really demean your whole argument. It's like, why? It just gives them fuel to pretend they're being bullied when they're not. I don't understand that mindset of, I understand with Trump and certain other people, they're like, well, they are bullies to other people, so we should be able to criticize them in the same way they criticize us. And I'm like, sure, but don't we want to be better? Don't we want to be above that? There's so many legitimate things to criticize him for. So many legitimate things to criticize some people for. It's like, why choose the petty thing? Why choose the obvious? Let's be more creative. Let's criticize them in ways they can't dispute. All right, let's end with this very fun, lighthearted topic. Anyone who gets cosmetic surgery should be upfront about it and we should openly discuss the topic. I don't know how I feel about that. I've always felt very weird about plastic surgery because I know that my opinion tends to be just a little bit different. And really it's just because I don't really think that plastic surgery, I've never had plastic surgery, just full disclosure, but I don't really think it's a bad thing to do. I think if people want to, then that's their decision. I do understand why people should be more open about it because it definitely does give unrealistic expectations. I think if we're gonna say that and we're gonna say, oh, you had a nose job, you have to tell everybody. I think if we're gonna say that, then we should as a society not necessarily be harassing and shaming people and calling them horrible names and being horrible to them for making that decision. I think if we as a society were a lot more open to things like plastic surgery and we didn't publicly shame particularly women so much for getting plastic surgery, I think that it would be easier for people to be more open and honest and have the honest conversation of like why I did this, why I changed it. Also, it's very interesting. I feel like I never see, and I could be wrong, I feel like I never see men getting shit for getting plastic surgery when it's fairly obvious that most men in Hollywood have had some type of plastic surgery. Even men in the beauty space I know have gotten plastic surgery, and I really never ever see it talked about in the way and speculated about in the way that women's plastic surgery is, which I think is very interesting and very telling, and I think is why I understand why people aren't open about it. Do I wish they were? Yes. But do I also understand why you wouldn't be because you don't want to be berated for that? Sure, I can also understand that. It's a very good representation of like an everyday look that I've been doing lately. This is pretty much the go-to. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, or just like, or just subscribe, or do neither. I'm honestly just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, my social media, and everything I just put on my face will be linked down below, along with a link to register to vote. That's right, you can click on that link, you can register to vote, and you can be part of your democracy. It's a super fun thing to do. People thought this scrunchie was a bun on the top of my head in my Tana video. It's not. It's just a big scrunchie. And yeah, I love you guys so much. Let me know what you thought about these unpopular opinions down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!